Okay, so I'll talk about my career so far in weather and climate, which has mostly been studying. So here's a short table of content what I'll talk about. First, I'll talk about my education because being French, it hasn't been, the usual A levels that most of you would be familiar with. I'll talk shortly about why I study meteorology, what got me to studying it. And then I'll go over the course degree or the degree structure that I've been studying and some of the internship that I've had the opportunity to do in between those years. So being French, I followed the French education system, and the A-levels equivalent is the French baccalaureate, which is quite similar, but you don't get to choose your subjects. You can only choose a path, which gives you pretty much the same subjects of everyone, but it's the weightings of the averages that matters. And the scientific S path, which I took, included basically maths with additional maths, physics, chemistry, biology, and geology. So the French system gives you quite a broad scientific background for the S path, at least. And from there, it does leave a lot of options open. So it kind of leaves the sort of reflection of what do I want to do after quite late, because you don't exactly have to worry about it even for your final exams. So for my personal interests, I studied meteorology because I lived in Hong Kong for a few years, in 2015 to 2017, and it's a region of the world which gets to see a lot of extreme weather events like typhoons, and also a bit of rainy seasons with extreme rain events. And I just was excited to see any extreme event come by. And Hong Kong does share its data, so you can access a lot of their forecasts, and I got to kind of get interested in understanding how typhoons work and how they grow and travel. And basically, I wanted to understand how the atmosphere worked, and meteorology was the way to go. So here's a few pictures of what I got to see. And yeah, the pretty clouds is one of the main reasons that a lot of students start studying meteorology, and that's one of the things that you discuss in first years is cloud types, and that's always an interesting thing to discuss. So the MMet that the University of Reading offers is basically an extended version of their 3-year bachelor program, and the first 2 years of the program are the same. So originally I had applied and got onto the bachelor's degree, which is a 3-year program. And because the first 2 years of the programs are the same, you can switch to the MMet at the end of your first year, which I did. And one of the great things about the MMet is that third year is spent in Oklahoma, which gives you the opportunity to look at American weather and study it. So the picture there is a picture of the University of Reading Atmospheric Observatory, and it's a place that you'll go to a few times when studying at Reading to take measurements and make forecasts. And the University of Reading will, so you'll have access to the data, and you can spend your time forecasting day-to-day weather if you want. And then the course structure makes it so that when you come back from your third year in Oklahoma, the fourth year is similar to the third year of the bachelor's degree, but with some extra work and also a different choice of modules that you can take, so that you can take master's level courses. So my first year, as you can probably guess, is mainly getting building blocks of meteorology with studying a lot of basic maths and physics to consolidate making sure that every student knows their maths and physics that you'll need to study meteorology. And you'll also get introduction to a lot of meteorology topics. So that'll be with the weather and climate fundamentals modules, which give you an understanding of the governing equations of the atmosphere, some of the basic thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, and how the atmosphere moves and behaves. And you also have introduction to meteorology modules, which basically familiarize yourself with many phenomena that you can study in meteorology. So that'll go from day-to-day thunderstorms to oscillations in temperature in the ocean that are over a few years. The second year is just building on this with further maths, with differential equations, and learning statistics, which is something that you'll do a lot of if you get into research. And we also start using coding in a lot of these modules, which, as Matthew said, is an integral part of meteorology. You can also delve deeper into the first year's topics with the range of optional modules you can get to choose. At this point, they're not too important. You don't, it's not going to define your degree yet, but it is really good to have the options where you can just follow your own interests. At the end of my second year, I took part in the Europe project that the University of Reading offers, which is an undergraduate research opportunity program. And it's a 6-week-long placement where you can work alongside a university academic, which gives you hands-on research experience. So my project was on triple frequency radar measurements and what information they can give you on cloud ice particles. So that was on using different frequencies, which will get reflected differently by the ice particles in the clouds. And from this, you can basically get information on the size and shape of the ice particles, and involved quite a fair bit of coding and also making a project poster and presentation. The third year in Oklahoma is probably the best year of the degree, where you take senior level classes, which is the equivalent of third-year bachelor's classes. And it gives you the opportunity to focus on American weather with synoptic scale meteorology and the different cyclones that you get over the US. Also thunderstorm forecasting and all of the weather phenomena that you wouldn't exactly get in the UK, like tropical cyclones, thunderstorms, or intense thunderstorms, and score lines. You'll have classes in the National Weather Center, which gives you the opportunity to work alongside field experts, and really you're surrounded by just a tremendous group of scientists. There's also the opportunity to storm chase, though that is something that you have to do carefully and take a lot of precautions doing. So on the right there is a photo that one of my friends took while storm chasing together. So you can get to see really incredible weather phenomena there. At the end of my third year, I took an internship at Jupiter Intelligence, which is a startup that develops their own climate risks and hazard models. And they sell those climate products and analytics to private sector companies like banks and insurance. So if you think of a real estate company in Florida that owns a lot of properties, for example, if they wanted to know if in 20 years those properties might get flooded, that's the typical kind of question that Jupiter Intelligence helps answer. My role there was to work on the Jupiter-Princeton environment-dependent probabilistic tropical cyclone model, which is a mouthful. It's basically this model that depends on 4 variables of the environment conditions, temperature, humidity, for example, and gives a tropical risk figure. And my job was to implement future climate data into that model to see if future climate might lead to different risks in tropical cyclones. It involved a large bit of coding and some literature work to discuss the results. My fourth year was the same as the third year for the BSc, but you do a bit of extra work. It gave me the opportunity to take part in a field trip module in the Lake District, where you can get to train your forecasting skills in a difficult spot that's surrounded by mountains and valleys, where forecasting can be quite tricky. I also did my personal research project, which was on comparing mesoscale convective systems, which are basically thunderstorms, depending on their regions, and how those behave depending on the environment conditions there. So what's next for me is an important point, as Matthew said, is that meteorology does leave a lot of options open. It's a science degree at its base, at its core. So you can do a lot of different scientific topics after a meteorology degree. You don't have to restrict yourself. So I've applied to data science and computer science masters, and I've luckily received offers from plenty of universities, and that's something that University of Reading does do well, is that it's one of the best places to study meteorology. Thank you for listening.